Now, with less than 24 hours for Burkinabe authorities to spill excess water from the Bagre Dam, farmers and residents living along the waterways of the White Volta River in northern Ghana are rushing to salvage their farm produce as part of preparations to evacuate to safety ahead of the spillage of the Bagre Dam in Burkina Faso. The annual opening of the dam, which often coincides with heavy rains, always leaves a devastating trail of destruction in about 185 communities within the SADA zone, with an estimated population of 200,000 currently constantly at risk. Let's get an update on how the farmers are preparing for the floods. We start from the northeast region, where my colleague Ilyasu Tanko reports some farmers in the West Mamprusi and Mamprugu Mwaduri districts say there is no assistance from the National Disaster Management Organization to help them evacuate.
Spillage is an annual occurrence where billions of gallons of water are released from the Bagre Dam. The waters are barreled dangerously into the tributaries of the White Volta River in the northern, northeast, upper east, and savannah regions, starting from Gbenku at Zebela, uprooting trees, turning farmlands into rivers, and forcing families to abandon their homes. The dam is mostly spilled around August and September each year, when it could no longer contain above its 235 meters depth. Around 13 people were killed in the region last year and over 2,000 forced to leave their homes due to floods caused by torrential rains and the opening of the dam. This year, operators of the dam on Tuesday issued an alert announcing the dam will be spilled between August 27 and 30. But even before the spillage could start, hundreds of farmlands in communities in the West Mamprusi and Mamprugu Mwaduri district, which are usually the hardest hit, are already submerged in floodwaters caused by weeks of torrential rains in the region. The situation has left some farmers and residents in panic. At Kunkwa and Pasinkwe, these desperate farmers, as part of preparations to move to higher grounds, were risking their lives using old canoes to salvage their drowning produce. We use canoe to salvage these crops. We are risking our lives because we have to feed our family. We stand in the water at neck level to harvest what we could. We have lost much already. At our neck level, we stand in the reptiles-infested water to pick up the crops. We are doing all this just to get something to eat. We are fighting to get something in our stomach. This is how we risk our lives every year. That is why you always hear people are drowned. Every year, people die in this community as a result of the spillage. For several decades every year, a combination of bad roads, incessant rain and flooding along tributaries of the White Volta River completely cut the overseas communities from the rest of the region. About 4 people died in these 2 communities last year due to the twin occurrence of the dam spillage and heavy downpours. The farmers here, while bracing themselves for the looming catastrophe, are criticizing the National Disaster Management Organization for their poor handling of previous flooding situations. The NADMO officials always show up late when the harm has already been caused. Last year, for instance, we had evacuated all by ourselves before they came. We always expect NADMO officials to give us enough information ahead on how to escape the vagaries of the spillage. But they always wait and show up only after we are devastated by the incident. We have lost our crops already. I have 3 acres here and 4 over there. The 4 is already submerged in a flood. And we only see few announcements on TV, but we expect them to be physically present here. Ilyasu Tanko reporting.
We shall bring you more updates from our correspondents in the affected areas. But right now, let's bring in the Member of Parliament for Binduri in the Upper East region, Abanga Abdullahi. Thank you for joining the conversation, sir. Now, how are you sensitizing your people to get to higher ground ahead of the spillage? Honorable Abanga, if you can unmute so we can actually hear what you're saying. Just press the unmute button so we can hear what you're saying. Great.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I can hear you now. So I was asking, how are you sensitizing your people to get to higher ground in anticipation of the spillage?
Okay, so thank you very much. You know, this issue has been happening for some time now, several years, over 10 years now, where anytime this time of the season, then a lot of farmers and communities living along the White Volta suffer the flooding. So, for example, last year we have a situation where in my constituency, in Binduri constituency, and the other constituency on that same stretch had a lot of flooding, and so farmers lost their crops, and some people even lost their life. So this year we started the sensitization early, and on Sunday I was actually in the constituency, and the farmers themselves have realized that they need to move because the time was up, and the NADMO, the National Disaster Management Organization, has been on the ground. And so a lot of the farmers are very much aware that any moment from now, the Bagre Dam will be open. And with the heavy rainfall that we are also experiencing at this moment, there's the most likely that the river will overflow, and they could suffer some flooding in their farms and in their houses. So there's a lot of awareness among our communities along that stretch. I'm confident that if this thing happens, what we are likely to lose is their crops, the farmers. A lot of them are attracted in farming along the banks because, interestingly, the plots along the banks are the most fertile portions of the soil. So they always want to plant their maize and their crops along the banks. And that is what we are likely to lose this year.
Right. Now, a bit of a pointed question. What are you doing in respect of getting the people to understand that they have to evacuate? NADMO is saying that it is experiencing difficulty in getting some of these farmers who are actually reluctant in moving to move over to safety. So what are you doing as member of Parliament for Binduri?
Yes, we are doing some radio sensitization, community visits. We are talking to them that they have to move. And like I'm saying, for residents, we don't have houses close by the rivers, again, at least in my constituency. But because of their farms, some people always want to go to the farms. And we are telling them that those who have their farms that is ripe, they can quickly harvest it now. And those who do not have anything to do in the riverside at this moment, so just stay away. So there's a lot of sensitization that is going on the ground, radio programs and visit to the communities. That's what we have been doing.
Maybe the final bit I'll put to you, the spillage of the Bagre Dam is not a novelty. It's not a new phenomenon. We know it happens year in and year out. But one situation that could have mitigated the effect is the construction of the Pualugu Dam. Why the delay in constructing the Pualugu Dam?
Yes, the dam is a big project. It's not a project that can just be constructed in a year. And so we are grateful that the government is committed to it. And so a lot of work is going on behind the scenes. We are aware that the contractor was in our communities, sensitizing the community. There has to be some resettlement that has to be done. Some people have to move away because, like you said, the engineers tell us and the experts that once that dam is constructed, this annual flood from the White Volta should be the thing of the past because the river will flow into the dam, and then that water will actually be used by the same farmers to crop their farms. So this is a big project, and so we don't expect that it is something that can be done within a year. Of course, the project timelines, I'm sure, extends to more than 2 to 3 years. It's not something that you can use 1 year to construct it. So I am aware that the contractors are on site and they are doing a lot of underground work. So
do you have any idea, pardon the interjection, do you have any idea when we can expect the Pualugu Dam's construction to be complete? Now that you're saying it will take some time, have they given you any idea what to expect for the dam's completion?
I don't have the timelines.
Okay.
But I am aware that it's a project that will take more than 2 to 3 years to construct it. It's not a 1 year time.
Okay. My very final bit to you, it has to do with the farmers and their produce. Now, we often lose lives and we also have farmers losing their produce. They have just about 24 hours. And I hear there are some spaces that have been created for them to move their produce to. Has that happened? Have all of them been able to move or cart their produce to these areas?
Well, I cannot be exact as to whether everybody has complied or everybody was able to do that. But I mean, even if they are able to move their produce, I'm aware that there are still some crops that they haven't been able to harvest. So naturally, those crops, if the flooding comes, we are going to lose those crops, and it will affect the livelihood of our farmers because most of them. That is where they crop their best. They normally get their best yield, their best harvest comes from the riverside. So we are going to suffer that, and I will take this opportunity to appeal to government and other non-governmental organizations to support us and to support our farmers along that stretch, because we are naturally going to suffer some damage when the dam is open today or tomorrow.
Mr. Abdullahi, thank you very much for your time. Abanga Abdullahi is Member of Parliament for Binduri. Now, from the northern region, Martina Bugri reports that some farmers have, on their own, rented temporary structures away from the likely affected areas. She joins us on phone with an update. Martina, from that sector of the northern belt of the country, what can you report about how farmers are trying to avoid the shocks of the spillage?
For the people of Nawuni, most are moving to places they have rented. And like I said earlier in the morning, some are also waiting and hoping that the Ghana Education Service would approve so that they can use the school building that is in the community to house those who are unable to rent or those who are unable to seek shelter elsewhere because they can't afford. But for those who are along the White Volta, who are doing the farming, there's Singer electoral area. We have just 2 communities where some people planted maize, and so they are harvesting as we speak. But the rest who planted rice, the rice is at the reproductive stage, and it's likely that they would have nothing to harvest if the floods come in.
Speaking of which, have we also seen some resistance in this area where farmers are refusing to move, even on the back of the expected spillage?
Because of the previous incidents that have happened in these communities, most people are willing to leave, even though they know that they have nothing they have nothing to take along, and they probably would have to suffer in the subsequent months to come. they think that it's better to move up safer grounds for their own lives' sake so that they can have an opportunity tomorrow. But we have also heard some people resist that they can't leave what they have. And these people, I'm told that they have had to bring in community elders and sometimes chiefs to dialogue with them to try and reason so that they can move them up. And then later on, these outstanding issues can be addressed. And so, yes, we have had people who have resisted, but by and large, majority have agreed that they need to move.
Finally, Martina, what have people shared with you in terms of this perennial problem where year in, year out, they lose their produce, sometimes even life is lost, and the failure for the right measures to be put in place to sort of save them from this inconvenience? What have the people been sharing with you?
I think that what they share is hopelessness. They think that we have lost it. If for several years it keeps happening, each year we have to have people die, people lose their properties, and nothing is being done. They think that all is lost, and all that can save them now is good. For instance, in the Singer area where I talked of earlier, they said that all they are hoping is that God would intervene so that the water does not stay any longer, and then they can have something to harvest. It means that they are not looking up to any other person except God.
Martina Bagre is our Northern Regional Correspondent. Thank you very much for joining us, Martina.